I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. Feels like a winter heat wave in San Diego. The changes in the climate that may be driving this warming trend.
And I'm Peggy Pico here in La Jolla with UC President Janet Napolitano to talk about enrollment caps, funding, her National Peacemaker Award, and much more just ahead.
The author of the 1 Minute Manager and a psychologist preview their new book. Plus, 2 words, banana piano. Playing around with gadgets featured at a Balboa Park event. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. San Diego's growing population means a greater need for more affordable housing. City Heights has traditionally been a place where people could find cheaper rents, but even that's changing because of supply and demand. This security gate leads to one of 10 properties scattered throughout City Heights that were recently renovated for low-income working families and seniors.
You know, it's now a nice gated community, and only the people that live there have the fobs to get in and out.
Trinisha Dangerfield says the keyless entry device is just one of the many upgrades to her apartment complex. Village View is the largest of 132 affordable housing units that have gotten a major makeover.
It's awesome. I love it.
It's also sorely needed in a city that still ranks among the least affordable places to live in California.
There's people here that has 2 jobs that's working at a fast food restaurant. And if they live in affordable housing, I mean, we can do this.
That's why the nonprofit City Heights CDC partnered with a developer to upgrade 10 properties in the neighborhood, all designed for people struggling to make ends meet.
We use public subsidies to make these properties available to families, and the rents are fixed in relation to their income.
They sort of accumulated these properties, and then as time went on, it came up to 15 years or so. We decided that it was time to totally take them all under one umbrella and rehab them.
As more people move in and rents go up, properties like these are becoming an oasis in a sea of change. Now, the average cost of a 2-bedroom apartment in San Diego has risen nearly $500 in the past 5 years, about from $1,446 a month to more than $1,900, depending on the neighborhood. The calendar says it's still winter for another week, but it doesn't feel like it. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us we're in for an even hotter weekend.
A strong high-pressure system and mild Santa Ana winds are working together to push our temperatures up to 20 degrees above normal, 80s at the coast and low 90s inland. The warm and dry conditions are expected to linger through Monday. Santa Ana conditions are not unusual for this time of year, but the exceptionally warm temperatures that have persisted the past 2 years are. 2014 was San Diego's warmest year on record, and this year is following in its path. Alexander Gershinov is a research meteorologist with Scripps Institution of Oceanography. He says the West has been warming consistently because of climate change, especially over Nevada and Utah, where our Santa Anas develop.
It's that region of the country, the Great Basin, that's been warming a lot, specifically in the spring. And so those Santa Ana winds, they start out warmer and they end up warmer at the coast.
Gershinov says the ocean is also contributing to our record warmth. Sea surface temperatures are nearly 5 degrees above average. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
As Susan said, the heat is on in San Diego. The beaches will be crowded this weekend. You better believe it. We're looking at 80s along the coast, and even hotter in the inland valley areas with 90s. Cooler and sunny in the mountains with 70s and 90s and 80s for the desert. We've been hearing a lot about Mayor Kevin Faulconer's task force to find the Chargers' new stadium, but what about that other task force he created earlier this year? Faulconer today kicked off the first meeting of his committee that's supposed to help San Diegans get better jobs. The group of education and business leaders will identify programs that provide San Diegans relevant job training. The committee hopes to deliver ideas within 6 months. There's a new push to protect seniors and their families from shady business practices. A bill in Sacramento targets elder care referral agencies. It would force them to disclose any commissions connected to the placement of clients. Supporters of measures say the goal is to prevent anyone from taking advantage of seniors who are looking for nursing homes and other services. New details on a housing plan for low-income Californians introduced by Assembly Speaker Tony Atkins. Now, some say the program could help her wife's company, which focuses on affordable housing. LA Times reports the San Diego Democrat checked in with the Office of Legislative Counsel to confirm the plan does not pose a conflict of interest. That's because the funding proposal is not connected to a specific company or project. Before taking over as UC president in 2013, Janet Napolitano served as the Secretary of Homeland Security under President Obama. Last night in La Jolla, she accepted the National Peacemaker Award and talked with Peggy Pico today about the controversy over tuition increases in the UC system.
University of California President Janet Napolitano, thank you for joining us and welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you.
Well, funding for the UC system is a continuing debate. Earlier this month, you said that unless the state increases funding by $218 million, you would cap enrollment for in-state students. You've been meeting with Governor Jerry Brown about this on a regular basis, I understand. How close are you to resolving this issue?
Well, I think we're both very mindful of the concern that Californians have, but also the need for the University of California to remain, the premier public university in the country. So what we've done is just say, look, we're not going to increase California enrollment. Normally we would increase the size of the entering class. We're going to keep the size of the entering class for now at the same size as it was last year until we work out with the state a budget that would actually pay for more California resident students.
Now, part of this is your proposal to raise student tuition by 28% over 5 years would make affordable college education even less attainable for many students. What obligation does the UC system have to providing affordable college education to Californians? We
do. We have that obligation. And when you say 28%, people go, oh my gosh, you can't do that. What we've said is, look, we've had a tuition freeze for 3 years. Costs increase. The number of students increases. So what we want to do is not increase tuition for California residents if we don't have to. We also want to maintain our current financial aid policy, which says that anyone from a family that makes less than $80,000 pays no tuition at all. So this tuition increase won't even affect them. That's 55% of our undergraduate student body right there. So when you talk about the tuition increase, what it's designed to do is say, look, we want to go on a 5-year track so that tuition is predictable. We want to keep any increases as low as we can, so it's capped at 5. Remember, in the past, there have been double-digit tuition increases. We don't want to do that. And then we're going to work with the state about what a real funding model should look like.
If the funding comes through as you wish, the $218 million, then would the tuition increase still move forward?
Probably not, no.
Okay. Recently you went to Baja California to brainstorm about a project called UC Mexico. What is the initiative UC Mexico and how would that work?
The UC Mexico initiative is very exciting. It's saying that we can have a unique partnership with higher education in Mexico, our geographic neighbor, our regional neighbor. We can share research. We can have graduate students go back and forth, faculty go back and forth, undergraduates, and really take advantage of the fact that in addition to facing outward to the Pacific and our unique relationships with China and other countries in Asia, we also have this neighbor directly to the south that we can work with.
Early this month also an assembly bill was introduced that would aims, I should say, to begin the process of an 11th UC campus. And there's talk here in San Diego County for a future UC Chula Vista campus. I don't know if you've heard that, with a focus on STEAM, the science, tech, engineering, math, and arts. What direction are you considering for growth of the UC system to meet changing demographics and population demands?
Well, the number one thing is to fund our current campuses adequately. So our newest campus, Merced, next week at the Regents meeting, they will, hopefully, I think they will approve what we call Merced 2020, which builds out that campus to accommodate 10,000 students by the year 2020. So I think that should be our focus now, as well as supporting our existing campuses like UC San Diego to make sure that they remain at the high quality that they are and that they are affordable to California students.
Congratulations, by the way, on receiving the National Peacemaker Award last night from the National Conflict Resolution Center.
Thank you.
That's a big deal. One of the reasons you were honored was because of how you addressed the issue and the problem of sexual assault on campus, including your launch of the UC Task Force last summer to address sexual violence. What do you think is the key to stopping sexual assaults on campuses, college campuses?
Well, number one, to be very clear that yes means yes, and that there has to be a knowing and an intentional acquiescence before any acts occur. And also now to have kind of a culture change, to really focus on prevention and how people should relate to one another. So a lot of our program will involve training. And we also want to make sure that we conduct adequate, quick investigations and that appropriate sanctions are imposed.
UC President Janet Napolitano, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It used to be called STEM, but they added art to the mix and made it STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math is on tap this Sunday. And KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler got a preview of Balboa Park's special family event.
Sure, the park's pretty empty now, but come Sunday, they expect more than 10,000 people at Balboa Park for STEAM Day. They'll be doing things like playing music with a banana piano. Along the Prado and Balboa Park, science and art-themed crafts for everyone to enjoy, and it's all free. There's even more inside the museums. Kids under 12 are free with paid adult. Ashanti Davis works in the Reuben H. Fleet Science Center's art studio. She says people forget that science can be even weirder than some art.
And every time I watch a black hole documentary, I kind of go, oh! And you know, these things are weird. There are parts of them that are kind of involved in everything that we do, but there are parts of them that are very strange and bizarre, and we want to know more because we want to know where it's going and where it's going to take us next.
This is the 7th year for STEAM Day at the park. Angela Bacon from the San Diego Railroad Museum says they hope to bring joy to science education.
Because a lot of times when kids think about science and math, all they think about is statistics and numbers. That kind of drag them down a little. And this is a fun way to engage them and to learn that science and math can be fun.
Whether you're playing with a solar-powered train set, tickling a giant robot giraffe, or playing your song on a banana piano. There's a lot for everyone to enjoy at STEAM Day in Balboa Park. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
You can find a list of STEAM Day events and more of our stories on Balboa Park, the heart of San Diego, online at kpbs.org/Balboa Park. Every day in the U.S., about 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. Peggy Pico finds out how retirement can become an exciting opportunity.
Co-author of the bestseller, The 1 Minute Manager, teamed up with UC San Diego psychologist Morton Shavitz for their new book, Refire, Don't Retire. Make the rest of your life the best of your life. Authors Ken Blanchard and Morton Shavitz, welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Now, Ken, you use the word refire in your title. What does refire mean?
It really means making your life one of zest and enthusiasm and all. A lot of people think of aging as a sentence rather than an opportunity, and refiring is, boy, what can I learn? What can I do emotionally? You know, relationships. What can I do intellectually, learning new things? What about my body? How about spiritually? You know, there's a lot of opportunities to get excited about life, no matter what your age is.
instead of just kind of waiting for it, like drudging into it. Morton, as a psychologist, what do you find to be the major hurdles to embracing retirement or that stage in your life?
Attitude, thinking of yourself as not being able to, as opposed to thinking of the new opportunities. And you know, think of the two words. Retire means to go to sleep. Refire means to wake up. And so refire is a metaphor for life. It's a way of approaching life, and as Ken said, with zest and enthusiasm. It's taking risks. It's looking for new opportunities. It's doing simple things like going to a restaurant you've never been to, asking the serving person to decide what they think is the best thing on the menu, and having them serve it to you.
Trying something new. And that brings me to, you touched on it, your book focuses on 4 specific areas: the intellect, physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. You mentioned one practical tip for dealing with that. Do you have a few others you can tell us?
Well, the fun one in emotional and relationships is what we call the last-minute gang, because a lot of people get in ruts, and, you know, they say, well, you didn't give me enough notice and all. And the rule, if you're in the last-minute gang, is that somebody calls you to ask you to do something. If you don't have anything planned, you say yes. You know, let's just go do it, you know. And
why not? Act like a teenager.
It's being more spontaneous.
And you get into situations, we get the engineer to wind up at an art show that he or she might never have chosen to do before. It allows you to say at the last minute, hey, you know, come on over for takeout food. We just want to chat with you. And again, as Ken said, unless you're already committed, you have to say yes. And that's what leads to the spontaneity.
I love that. Morton, how would these techniques, how would they actually change the aging process, or do they?
Well, they do change the aging process. We have very different models of aging. Laura Carstensen at Stanford and Delip Jeste here at UCSD have studied aging. And what we find out is there are a lot of myths about aging. Older people are not depressed nearly as much as 30 and 40-year-olds. Older people are willing to try out new things if you give them a path. Getting older is an opportunity, it's not a sentence, and that's what the theme is. And once again, we think that it also applies to people who are younger. Give yourself a chance to figure out where you are and where you want to go.
Sure, and we'll come back to that, but first I want to ask, on the retirement side of this, Ken, how is this book different than other retirement strategy books that you've seen?
Most of the retirement strategy books focus on finances and all. We're looking at your life, you know, how you can get that zest and enthusiasm in it, you know, and so make some fun with it. And then what are you doing physically? Well, start walking. You know, you don't have to go to the gym and pump iron. Just walk 30 minutes, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 times a week, and you'll be ahead of most people, you know. It's just sort of saying, what can I do differently?
And Morton, you said that this could be not just for, you don't have to wait till you retire. It applies to middle-aged people?
It absolutely does. And what it applies to is anybody who is looking at where they are in life and finds themselves doing the same thing at the same time with the same people in the same way. You know what? Time to refire.
Speaking of refiring, Ken, you are also working with San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer. What are you doing at City Hall? Are you firing him up?
Well, I helped him and facilitated them developing a strategic plan, you know, because one of the problems in government is if you have nothing to serve, the only thing you get to serve is yourself. And so that's what we're trying to say. Well, what are we trying to serve? Where are we trying to go? And it could be unique to actually have goals that people have to report on and accomplish.
All right, Ken and Morton, thanks so much for joining us. I want to let folks know that they can join you, the authors, Ken Blanchard and Morton Chavez, as they discuss their book, Refire, at the Refire, Don't Retire, at the UC San Diego Price Center tonight at 7 p.m. More details at kpbs.org.
The DA charged 15 San Diego men in gang shootings, knowing some had nothing to do with the crimes. And what are the rules for renting your home to vacationers? Well, it depends. And a hospital's contract with Planned Parenthood has stirred things up in El Centro. I'm Mark Sauer. Join me for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
Happening now, the San Diego Latino Film Festival. The festival rolled out the red carpet at its new home base at the AMC Fashion Valley Theaters. Organizers say they're excited to introduce movie fans to an amazing lineup of filmmakers and actors.
We're really excited. We have Edward James Olmos, a legend of Chicano Latino cinema. He's coming here with his new animated film, 3D animated film for the whole family. It's called El Americano, which is also co-produced by local filmmaker Ricardo Arnaiz.
The film festival started about 22 years ago at college campuses. Organizers say they are amazed by how it's grown to stage screenings at Fashion Valley.
But at the heart of it, the community is what's important. And the community colleges, universities, and community organizations have continued to support us over the past 22 years.
San Diego Latino Film Festival runs until March 22nd. We have more information at kpbs.org. Just click on the events section. Richard Nixon's historic visit to China in 1972 changed international relations forever. The visit is now the inspiration for a modern opera. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando checks in on San Diego Opera's production of Nixon in China and lets the director and soprano explain why a modern opera can be a scary and exciting thing.
My name is James Robinson, and I am the stage director of Nixon in China. And here we are in the theater awaiting an orchestra dress rehearsal of this opera. There's nothing that scares people more than modern opera, those two words together. So I would say fear not. This music is so upbeat, so interesting, so accessible, so rich with different American styles. There's nothing depressing about it. There's nothing painful about it.
The gratification of doing new opera is that we are kind of creating history ourselves by doing that. And this opera happens to be one of the very important American operas in the repertoire of American opera.
I actually find taking on a modern piece like this to be very liberating because there's not a long tradition of productions behind it.
As we know of operas, you know, Bohème, Traviata, all those operas, at that moment when they were first written and first done, I'm sure that singers felt pretty much the same way. What an incredible honor with such talented composers to be the one to give life to the opera. And that's precisely what we're doing with Nixon in China.
Nixon in China is an opera that documents, celebrates Nixon's trip to China in the early 70s. And most of us actually saw that event on television. So the conceit of the production is that because most of us viewed it that way, the television sets are kind of like our point of entry into the telling of the story. And that serves as kind of a kinetic, propulsive background to this very kinetic, propulsive opera.
Telecommunication has broadcast your message into space.
There are some things that it comments on, the power of the visual media. The whole trip to China was the most carefully orchestrated television event in history. And when they were putting the whole trip to China together, they were very much aware that everything was timed, so back home you could see it in prime time. And I think that type of highly choreographed, orchestrated event is something that still goes on in politics these days.
When we watch political people, I think there's a curiosity about them. You know, what were they like? What were they thinking during certain moments? What were they thinking while they were in China? What did they think of this ballet as it was happening?
I think in many ways the creators of this opera had a real soft spot for her, and she has one of the most beautiful moments in the entire show when she's sitting in the audience witnessing Madame Mao's creation And Pat is so moved by it and so troubled by this ballet that she has an out-of-body experience and jumps up on stage and wants to put an end to all the horrible things that are going on.
There's this like wonderful humanitarian quality about her. You just know, listening, those are Pat Nixon's words and thoughts. Sometimes she speaks outside of that, box of her First Lady role, but interestingly enough, it's still within the confines of her humanitarian beliefs.
I think of Nixon in China as being a wildly theatrical opera without being a typically narrative opera, and that's what makes it very exciting.
San Diego Opera's Nixon in China opens tonight at the Civic Theater and runs through March 22nd.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, a scathing report on the failures to ease the humanitarian crisis in Syria. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
Betting on the luck of the Irish. Meet Sheldon showing off on a skateboard. He's among 100 pit bulls who are looking for a new home. San Diego Humane Society is offering pit bull adoptions at a discount for the St. Patrick's Day holiday. The pooches will be microchipped and have their vaccinations. They hope to encourage responsible pit bull ownership. Workers say this particular breed ends up staying in shelters much longer than other dogs. We have a fun photo gallery of the pit bulls, plus a link to the Humane Society at kpbs.org. Once again, we're looking at a hot weekend here. The beaches will be crowded this weekend. We're looking at 80s along the coast, even hotter in the Inland Valley with 90s, cooler and sunny in the mountains with 70 temperatures, and 90s and 80s for the desert. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Stay cool.